From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. It's Saturday, March 22nd, which means you're listening to a special weekend edition of the podcast featuring the Capitol Recap. Coming up, the mission among lawmakers in Montpelier is to bring down next year's property tax rates as much as possible. But how to do it and whether one-time money should be used is a bone of contention at the State House. We'll hear more about where legislators and the governor stand after this.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency, where support comes from VITA, supporting business growth and innovation in the Green Mountain State. From agriculture to manufacturing, energy to food production, find solutions that turn your business dreams into reality. Visit VEDA.org and see how VITA can help make it happen.
Yesterday morning, the House Committee on Ways and Means advanced legislation that will eventually determine what happens to Vermonters' property tax bills next year. The bill uses about $100 million in one-time money to get tax increases below what they would otherwise be. And some lawmakers are worried that spending big on tax relief now could make the problem much worse in the future. In this week's edition of the Capitol Recap, Vermont Public Capitol Bureau reporters Lola Dufour and Peter Hirschfeld break down the tax debate in Montpelier.
Property taxes, Lola, and the rate at which they're going up has been the defining issue of this legislative session up until this point. This morning, the House Committee on Ways and Means voted out a bill that will set property tax rates for next year. It's going to have a big role in determining what folks' property tax bills are. So what's the verdict?
Well, I have good news and bad news. If this bill becomes law, the average property tax bill, at least the school side, would only go up about 1%. So basically stay flat. So,
Okay.
if you pay property taxes, that sounds like some much needed relief.
Yeah, that's the good news part. The bad news?
Well, the bad news is how lawmakers want to achieve that. In order to offset property taxes, they want to use over $100 million in one-time surplus money. And the problem with surplus money is you might not have it next year, right? And so they are setting the stage for a pretty big spike next year.
Yeah, we heard Representative Rebecca Holcomb, a member of the Ways and Means Committee, offer a pretty compelling argument in committee yesterday saying, look, this is like putting our property tax bills on a credit card. And when it comes time to pay the piper, we're going to be on the hook not only for that debt, but for whatever tax increase Vermonters are facing next year as a result of all these rising pressures that we've yet to figure out how to deal with.
Yeah, and, the other folks on that committee did not really refute what she was saying, including the chair. They just said, this is kind of a necessity this year, given what happened last year, the overall political climate, and the fact that, property taxpayers and schools need relief. But the thing about buying down tax rates is that it is this, bipartisan habit. Everyone knows that it's a bad idea, and yet we keep doing it. And now we are doing it with ever larger sums of money, which is particularly problematic when you consider sort of the economic storm clouds on the horizon.
The governor in his budget address and in his inaugural said, hey, Democratic lawmakers, I want to get next year's property tax rate increases down to zero. I went to some of his top aides this morning to find out what he thinks of the Ways and Means bill. It was interesting. They said this is not just about the property tax bill. This is about the extent to which Democrats are going to be willing to accept this broader education reform proposal that the governor introduced to them earlier this year. But it sounds like there's not a lot of clarity at this stage as to whether or not Democrats are going to be able to get behind a version of that will be strong enough for Phil Scott.
Yes, I think it is very unclear sort of where Democrats are. To be clear, they really do want to do reform. They like certain parts of his plan. They like the idea of going to a foundation formula, which is where the state would say, this is how much schools should spend. But on all of the other very important details, there is not yet a comprehensive Democratic counter, right? over which Republicans and Democrats can yet negotiate. And, I heard a similar sort of anxiety in the committee that just voted on this property tax bill, where a lot of lawmakers were saying, okay, what is the plan for the out years? And the chair of that committee, Emily Kornheiser, was like, well, this is all these are all the things we've been taking testimony on. This is modeling we're waiting to get back. We are working on this. And that is all true. But we have not yet seen them sort of come to a unified agreement about what that plan will actually look like.
Just as an aside, when I was talking to Ann Cummings, chair of Senate Finance, Emily Kornheiser, chair of House Ways and Means, I asked them about what the state response might be if we see those storm clouds that you were talking about earlier manifest in a severe way, i.e. huge federal budget cuts to the state of Vermont. Both of them said they would be open to considering a revenue package, a state revenue package, that would potentially offset some of those federal cuts and avert the worst harms that might befall Vermont as a result of those. It struck me the conversation we're having right now about taxes could evolve to become a very different thing in late May or early June if those federal cuts do come to pass.
Yeah, I find it particularly fascinating that, someone like Ann Cummings is saying that, who is very much a blue dog, right? I think that shows us how much the conversation is sort of could shift. And frankly, I think it shows the extent to which all of the conversations we continue having, necessary conversations, may come to be seen as very besides the point and very trivial.
That was Vermont Public's education reporter Lola Dufour. Speaking to State House reporter Peter Hirschfeld, head over to vermontpublic.org to read more about the Democrats' plans to lower property taxes next year. And sign up for our weekly Capitol Recap newsletter to stay up to date on all the news from our team of State House reporters. Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. Our executive producer is Kevin Trevelyan, and our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. Talk to you Monday.
Each morning, it's a new opportunity, a chance to start fresh. Up First from NPR makes each morning an opportunity to learn and to understand. Choose to join the world every morning with Up First, a podcast that hands you everything going on across the globe and down the street, all in 15 minutes or less. Start your day informed and anew with Up First by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts.